Welcome back. Phone line still open on the Borders and Borders hotline, 412-575-2600. Also taking your tweets at Josh Taylor HD in these last couple minutes. Got a couple tweets here. John on Twitter says, Pirates are in a good spot. They have expendable pieces to move. Craig, Dickerson, Polanco, Melky, Cervelli. A huge move isn't the answer, though. They need to take the 2013 and 2015 approaches at the deadline, make moves for solid pieces. That won't cost your future. Here's one thing I'll say about that. The last three guys, or I should say two of those last three guys, Polanco has no trade value. He's coming off an injury. You're not going to get much in return for him. Francisco Cervelli is no longer catching. Most of his experience is behind the plate, and he's had, 6 documented concussions? He's another guy who isn't even active yet on the roster and also has no trade value. Will Craig, Dickerson, Melky Cabrera, those are guys you can talk about as far as guys that have trade value. That I will agree with. As far as Dickerson and Melky Cabrera, I expect one of those guys to not be here by the end of the month. One of those guys will probably be moved, and if I have the decision-making power, which I don't, but hypothetically, if I wanted to try to make a move, I'm trying to move one of those guys, one of those two outfielders, whether it is Melky or Dickerson, for an arm, whether it's a bullpen arm or a starting arm, or if you can try to find a way to package a couple guys with one of those two outfielders to maybe get 2 arms back that can help you. That's what I'm looking at. As far as Will Craig, I'm moving Will Craig if it's a name that really not only helps you this year, but moving into next year. He's actually a pretty impressive prospect right now. He represented the organization in the futures game. He's shown a little bit of power. He's actually shown that he's kind of grown, someone into first base defensively at least. There might be a spot for him where he might be more useful on another team. So if that's the case, if you're going to move him, it has to be somebody you're going to get some value for, just because you can keep Will Craig a couple more years, and that bat's going to have a little bit of value for you. Let's go to the phone lines. We will go to Pete in Squirrel Hill. Pete, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, Josh, how are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
All right, 2 points if I may, Josh. Number one, Vasquez was not rooting against Josh Bell. He's from Venezuela, the same as Acuna Jr.
Exactly.
In a country dominated by poverty and economic strife, realizing the bond because they overcame that to get to the major leagues. That's
Agreed.
his countryman, his compatriot.
Absolutely.
Number two, in this era of, distance, home run velocity, and all this stuff, I called Jack Jurenzik on the phone a couple of weeks ago during a Pirate delay and said, could you please, Jack's been around. He was a former GM, been around the game a long time. Could you please explain to the people out there that have no idea the way Mickey Mantle hit a baseball? There was a book out there, Josh, The History of Major League Baseball, Our Nation's Pastime. There were 2 aerial photographies of Mickey Mantle home runs, one in 55 in D.C., one in 56 in Tiger Stadium.
Pete, you got to get to a point here. I'm on a time crunch here.
In D.C., 535, right-handed in Tiger Stadium over the left field roof into the lumberyard.
Pete, what's your point?
65.
What is your point, Pete? What were you getting to? You took a long time to get nowhere. I don't know if you're talking about just the fact that Mickey Mantle hit home runs far. That was a whole lot of exposition, and you lost me in the exposition. The measurement of what people are doing, the launch angle, the distance, the exit velocity, they're just measurements to confirm what guys are doing. They're not a means, or I should say they're not an end. They're a means to an end. They're just showing you how you get from this to this, how a ball gets from here to all the way over here, and what it takes for it to happen. Some people think that stuff is useful. Some people don't. Here's the thing. If you like it, great. If not, so what? So what either way? It's useful information. Physics has existed and has been a part of what happens in sports since sports began, because it explains why one thing happened and how this happened. For me personally, you know what I like the most about watching a game? I like finding out how we got from the beginning of the game when it was 0-0 and all the events that happened in that time that led up to this. How did we get from here to here? I like finding out that story. And sometimes knowing that a guy hit a ball at a 20-degree launch angle at 107 miles an hour off the bat and it went 450 feet kind of helps explain the story of how a guy did something that was meaningful in a game that a lot of people probably can't do. And when you're able to quantify it, it gives it language. Sometimes the numbers give things language, and it's easier for a lot of people to try to figure out, how did that guy do that? Because maybe someone wants to learn how to do it down the line. That's not a problem to me. I don't see that being a bad thing. Let's go back to the phone lines. We got Mike in Charleroi. Mike, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, Josh, thanks for taking my call. As far as making any moves at the deadline, the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Last time the Pirates tried this, disrupted the clubhouse, and they went in the tank. So I wouldn't make any moves.
Really? There's a two-edged sword to that. Thanks for the call. I appreciate the call sharing an opinion. Now, I don't totally disagree with it, but there's two sides to this coin. First off, the team is currently constructed as showing that they can at least go with the other teams in the division. They can compete, and that's fine. And if you go by the schedule coming up here in the latter part of the season, I think there's 30 to 35 games in the second half where they're playing teams with sub-500 records. You don't want to think too far ahead as far as that's concerned and just assume that they're wins, but it's something that sticks out. But the more important thing, you got to figure out how they compete with teams in the division. And this team currently constructed is competing with teams in the division right now. But here's the thing that you look at. Other teams in the division are going to make moves because they have to. Chicago needs pitching. The Brewers are going to need pitching. The Cardinals need a little bit of everything because they're just in a spiral right now. So those other teams, you better believe in the next 3 weeks, are going to try to do something. And if those three teams do something and the Pirates do nothing, it's not going to look good on the Pirates. And why am I saying that? Because we've seen it before. The past couple off seasons, we've seen other teams do something and the Pirates do nothing and the Pirates get killed for it. In terms of what you might want to see moving forward with this group, that's fine. But they got to do something to try to keep neck and neck with these other squads. Got to wrap up when we come back. Stick around.